Guys, welcome to Alex Goes Coconuts. So today I'm going to share 10 travel hacks for a smooth trip. Now honestly, a lot of people who've never traveled before, they just think, oh, it's just going to be a breeze, I'll head to the airport, check in, and everything's gonna go nice and smoothly. But it doesn't always happen that way. I've been traveling for so many years that I've learned over time that there are things that go wrong, especially in air travel, whether it's like a delay on your flight or sometimes, just passing security. Sometimes it doesn't go as smoothly as you'd like. Sometimes bad weather can cause flights to be grounded, or sometimes you miss your connecting flight and you can't get on. There's a lot of things that can go wrong on your travel day. So tip number one is to be flexible and let go of that expectation that everything is going to go perfectly that day. Just try to be prepared, and that's the best way to avoid frustration. So that brings me to tip number two. Bring entertainment. You want to be able to entertain yourself and distract yourself if something does end up going wrong and you just end up in an airport or an airplane for a really long time. So be sure that you have something to keep you busy and distracted, like, bring your iPad, download some movies, bring a book, bring your Kindle, bring your laptop. Make sure your phone has games and music on it. Just make sure that you have something that, will pass the time easier. And that way you're not going to be looking at your watch and saying, oh my God, I've been waiting here for hours and I got nothing to do. Bring entertainment. That way, if something does go wrong, you have something to distract yourself. So tip number three is to make sure that you bring chargers for your electronics. Especially when the airports have flights that are grounded because of bad weather, those charging stations fill up really quickly. So what I like to do is I like to bring an external battery pack, something I can plug in my laptop or my phone into, and that way I can charge it. This is especially good when you're on a plane. Sometimes, you do have an outlet where you can plug in your electronics with, and sometimes you don't. So bring yourself some chargers, make sure that your electronics are fully charged, and that way you're not going to be at the mercy of the airport's charging stations. So tip number four is to make sure you put those electronics in an accessible place on your carry-on luggage. At security, they will ask you to take out your laptop and your external battery and put it in the bin. So, make sure it's not in the middle of your suitcase, with clothes on top and all your products, and then you're gonna have to slow down the whole line to pull all your electronics out of your bag. I like to put it in a front zipper or somewhere that's easily accessible. That way I can pull it out when it's time to pass security. Tip number five is to give yourself enough time to get to your flight, but not so much that you're gonna be waiting at your gate for 2 to 3 hours. So I know a lot of people say to get to the airport 3 hours before the flight, but I think it depends on the flight you're taking, where you're flying to, and also what time your flight is at. Early in the morning, the gates just open and security lines are not even open sometimes, especially if it's the first flight of the day. You often can get there a little bit later. Use your common sense. So if you know that it's a really busy time of year where spring break or Easter where the airports are going to be packed, of course get there a little bit earlier. Or if the weather's bad, sure, get there a bit earlier. But on a regular day, just don't get to the airport too early that you're going to be waiting at the gate 2 or 3 hours. So tip number six is to check in online using your phone. So checking in online in advance will not only guarantee that you're gonna have a better seat selection, but it's also gonna be really practical because you're just gonna have your boarding pass on your phone. That'll save you tons of time from waiting in line so that you can get those paper boarding passes. A boarding pass can get lost a lot easier. When it's on your phone, you have less chances of losing that boarding pass. Tip number seven is to think about bringing some food and planning out your meals. I know this sounds obvious, but I can't tell you how many times I've left the house in a rush in the morning without eating breakfast, and then I get to the airport and a lot of the vendors are not even open. The only restaurant that's open is like a Starbucks, and it has like a huge line, and then I just don't have time to grab something before boarding the plane. So I get onto that plane and then I find out that flight doesn't serve food. And seriously, being hungry on a plane is just so frustrating. And yeah, I think that's why most passengers get really cranky on planes. You can tell the people who have not eaten breakfast or have not eaten in a few hours. Just plan ahead a little bit. Make sure you have some snacks, some high protein snacks that'll keep you, full at least between meals. And if you know you're going to be taking a flight during mealtime, bring yourself like a little sandwich or something so that you can eat on the plane and you're not going to be like stressed about getting food before boarding or leaving the house. Tip number 8 is to make sure that you bring yourself something that you can cover up with, especially if your flight is delayed or you do miss that connecting flight and you're in the airport really late and you're kind of like freezing. You just want something to like cozy up in. So I like to bring myself like a nice little warm jacket or a warm sweater or a nice little shawl that I can cover myself up with and use as a blanket. Tip number 9 is to bring yourself sanitizing wipes. This is like super important. I can't tell you how many germs go through a plane and an airport in a day. It's like gross. Airlines do a superficial cleaning of the planes before the next flight. So honestly, they often don't wipe down the screens or the food trays. So bring yourself like these little sanitizing wipes. That way when you board the plane, the first thing I like to do is just wipe down the screens, wipe down that food tray, maybe, any surface that I'm gonna touch. That way I can guarantee that I'm not gonna like get sick from like the previous passenger. You don't know, maybe the previous passenger had like gastro or had the flu. I just don't want any of those germs on my fingers or on any surface that I'm gonna touch. So yeah, those are always good to have. I don't remember tip number 10 and I didn't write it. Tip number 10. Tip number 10 is to bring yourself some medication the day you're flying. So make sure that you bring it on you. So in your purse or on your carry-on, something that if you start getting a headache or you start getting nauseous or you start getting a sinus headache, you're gonna have the medication to treat you right away. So I like to carry like a little small pill box and I put in some Tylenol, some Advil, some anti-nausea medication, some cold and sinus medication, anything that you might need at the airport or during the flight. Yeah, a lot of people pack their medication in their checked luggage and they don't think about the day that they're flying. But honestly, I can't tell you how many times I've had a headache or I started feeling nauseous on the plane and I just wanted that stuff right away to start making me feel better as soon as possible. Okay guys, so those are my top 10 travel hacks. I hope that helped you plan a better trip. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other suggestions, and if you are traveling, be sure to check out my other travel videos for some other great travel tips. Thanks for watching guys. Happy travels!